Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC and welcome back to the shop. Today we're starting our video in my current van build because although we love this van and it's very successful for our family, we are working on our next build out. Now this is going to be our show vehicle for this upcoming season, and I thought it'd be a really great time for us to start a new build series together. So let's get out of this van, let's get into the shop, and we can plan out this next build. So one of our first steps is going to be reviewing the details of the van so that we're both on the same page as we plan this build out. So today we're going to be starting with a Ford Transit 148 long body high roof van. It's probably the most common size van you see out there, very comparable to a Sprinter 144 high roof. It's going to be a little bit taller, but the build out area is almost the exact same. The van we have is a 2023. It was a van we bought for show season last year, and we ended up just being so busy we didn't have a chance to build it. So we finally got a chance to build it out, and you can do it with us. So it's a cargo van, which means it's pretty much bone stock in the back. It does have windows on the passenger sliding door, as well as the rear doors in the back. So that means we're going to have to add a couple of windows to this thing to make it the van we want it to be. Some of the other points to note on the van are it has electric 10-way seats with seat heaters. Personally, I'm not a fan of these. I like the 4-way adjustables with factory swivels. When we bought this van, this was all that was available. It does have dual alternators, which is a take it or leave it kind of a thing. For our power system, it's not a requirement, but it doesn't hurt to have them in there. We did get the heater prep package, and that is pipes that come out of the engine so that we can tag in our hot water heater to that. Super nice addition to our build. It means we're gonna have hot water every time we drive to a location. And the last thing I wanted to note was it has the dual AGM batteries under the driver's seat. The reason we want that dual AGM battery is it gives us the high spec 175 amp port on the CCP, which is the way we're gonna connect our electrical system to the van's electrical system, which means we can charge it at a very high rate and we're not gonna be overtaxing that system. So with those details out of the way, let's jump into our next worksheet and we can start planning out the details of our build. So the first step in planning our van build is gonna be just making a simple list. So we wanna list all the things that are gonna be must-haves in our van. These are gonna be like your non-compromising positions. Like personally, I have a family of 4, so we're gonna have 4 seats. So we're gonna list out all of our must-haves, then we're gonna list out our nice-to-haves. Nice-to-haves are things that we're still gonna plan to put in the van, but maybe based on budget, time, something like that, they're things that we could maybe plan for today and install later down the road. So let's jump into the list and take a look at my must-have. So here I have at the top of our list, my must-haves. So I mentioned before, I have a family of 4, 2 kids. So that means I need 4 safe seats for everybody in the van, which means we're gonna have to add 2 additional seats. Because I'm gonna have kids sitting in the back of my van, that means we're gonna need to add some windows. We don't wanna drive in a van with everything closed off. It makes you kind of feel sick and kind of gross. Plus, it's just not as enjoyable. So we're gonna add windows to the front of the van. While we're on the topic of windows, we're gonna add some pill windows into the back of the van so we get some ventilation next to the bed. So next to the bed, speaking of beds, we're gonna need sleeping for 4. Getting sleeping for 4 in a van, like a 148 high roof, can be a challenge. So this is something that we can definitely do. My personal van right now has 2 queen-size beds stacked up on top of each other. And when all 4 of us camp in there, it's a little bit like being in submarine bunks. So we're gonna try to change that up for this build, and we got a couple of ideas. So sleeping for 4. Then our next must-have is going to be an electrical system. So electrical these days is the lifeblood of our van. You can pretty much do everything from electrical. So we need a really awesome electrical system, and this time we're gonna be going with a 5 kilowatt EcoFlow system. Then I would say below that, you're probably at your must-haves, like your core fundamental must-haves for a van build. Sleeping, seating, and seeing outside. Everything else is gonna be a little bit nice. I do have a couple personal must-haves based on our experience and because we're here in Colorado. So the last couple of must-haves personally are gonna be a heater. Gotta have an under-seat heater so we can use this van all season long. We like to have a refrigerator in the van. That way we can have cold food. I don't have to worry about ice. But if you want to go with a cooler or something like that, it's totally fine. I got to have a fan in here so we can get some ventilation in the van. Here in Colorado, it gets warm in the summer. I don't need to go all the way to an air conditioner, but maybe if you lived in South Texas, something like that, an AC might be your must-have. Then the last thing in here is going to be water. So water system, I just love having a water system, cleaning up, things like that. We're way more self-contained, but the water's probably the last, like right on the edge of a must-have. You can definitely have a successful van without water systems. All right, with our must-haves out of the way, let's take a look at our nice-to-have list. So my nice-to-have is gonna be storage. We like to have all of our things stored away and nice and neat. You know, everything has a place in the van, makes a much happier van lifestyle. The next thing is going to be a roof rack for the van. We need a place to mount all of our accessories, things like that. things like solar. So solar is going to be my next nice to have. I didn't put it in the must-haves only because my power system can charge from the vehicle as I'm driving, and for some people that can be enough. I like to have my fridge running all season long, so I'm going to put solar on my nice to haves, and we're obviously going to add it to the van. This van, because it has those factory electric seats up front, it does not come with factory swivels, so we're going to need to add some factory swivels to those front seats. And when we swivel those front seats around, we're going to want some tables so that everybody can hang out in the van. In case of inclement weather or something like that, we have a place to have dinner, have a snack, maybe the kids can color, something like that. Moving on, I like to add wheels and tires. Now, I have not found a set of aftermarket wheels that I really like for the Ford Transit. The all-wheel drive wheel is kind of a funny one. I think there might be something from Method out there that's actually pretty cool, but definitely going to upgrade our tires to it. I like adding just some more off-road tires. It makes the van look more like a camper van and less like a delivery vehicle. It does hurt our fuel economy, so it's not something for everybody. The next thing is going to be tire carrier. Because I upgrade that tire size, I'm not going to be able to store my full-size spare underneath the van. So we're going to have to move it to the back of the vehicle, which can double as our ladder so we can get up to the roof of the van. So we're going to do a ladder tire carrier combo. Then I would like to have a sink and a potty in the van. I got young kids, so having a potty in there is awesome. And frankly, the more I realize everybody should probably have a potty in their van, especially these days when you're out in BLM land, nice to have a potty, and the powers that be want you to have a potty in the van too, so you're not leaving toilet paper roses all around the landscape. So sink and potty, those are going to be our last nice to haves. So with our list compiled, let's start laying out things in the van and making a hierarchy of when we're going to get these things done. Now that we've made our list of all the items we need to cram into this van, let's get a little more detailed list of how we're going to solve some of these issues. So let's take a look here. So for the seating for 4, I have always put in JMG seats into our vans. I really like the JMG seats. They have a new Gen 2 swivel seat that I'm really excited to try out. One of my older kids is a little bit bigger now, and so having a little more room in that seat is going to be nice. Also, the swivels are going to allow a little more flexibility in my layout. So in my old van, I had just like a regular stationary seat, and those are great if you're doing like a bench style, and honestly, they work fine for what I'm doing. But I think I put in swivel seats for some customers, and I think having the swivel seats in my van is going to be pretty nice. So we can count our 2 stock seats as a solution for seating, but we're going to add 2 JMG Gen 2 swivels into there. The next problem we need to solve is sleeping for 4. So my van right now has 2 queen-size beds, and they're double-decker, which works. We can still have gear in the van. Everybody can sleep cozy, but we only have about 20 inches of vertical space for us. And it's worked in the past, but when we're on a longer trip, I'll set up a tent and I'll go sleep outside in the tent with my youngest kid, and my wife and older daughter will sleep in the van. Everybody has a little bit more room, and it kind of diversifies where we're all sleeping so everybody's not snoring in one box. For this van, we're really excited to be working with Super Pacific. So we're going to be putting a Super Pacific pop top on top of the van. I met these guys in this summer over trade show season when we were out at Hood River. I thought it was a fantastic product. I'm super excited to put this one in the van, and we have it waiting to go, and as you can tell, I'm probably excited. So we're going to do one sleeping up above the van, which is 2 people up there. The next one, we're going to be sleeping sideways in the van. So we're going to do it's a new product for AVC. It's called the Any Pocket Sleeper. And this is like popping the bed out so we can sleep sideways in the back of the van, but we don't have to cut the outside of the van. I'm not a big fan of putting those fiberglass solutions on the outside of your vehicle. I don't think they look very cool, and I just don't need that room. I'm only 5'10". No one in my family is really taller than me, and so we can sleep sideways comfortably in the van as long as we're utilizing some of that interior space in the Ford Transit, and that's exactly what our Any Pocket Sleeper does. It's a plastic pre-finished product that goes in the walls and gives us an additional 7 inches of sleeping space sideways in there. So we're going to put an east-west bed in the back, and because we're going east-west, it's going to give us a little bit more room for build-out up front, and we'll get into that when we get into the layout. The next thing we're going to need to add in there are going to be windows. So I like to add vented windows to everywhere in the van that we can, with the exception of the sliding door. So the sliding door, I like a solid window there. I don't need venting there, and luckily we already have a factory window in that location, so we're not going to be adding a window to that spot. But we can add a vented window to my driver's side front quarter panel. It's going to be right next to one of my kids, and that helps us modulate where the air is going to be flowing through the van. We're also going to add 2 pill windows in the back next to the bed. That way we can get airflow from one end of the van all the way through to the other and out of our fan. And to move those things through there, we're going to need an electrical system. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be doing an EcoFlow 5 kilowatt system. And that's going to charge from our vehicle as we drive. It's going to charge from shore power if we're at a place to plug in, and we can charge from solar that's going to be up on the roof. The next thing on our list here is going to be a heater. So we're going to do a heater underneath our passenger seat. It's going to be right there. Super simple. We can plan for this in the future, and we can install that down the road, so we don't have to do that right away. Same thing for the fridge. We're going to do an Indel B CR130. The 130 is a 4.2 cubic foot fridge. My last van, I had an 86 liter fridge. So 130 refers to 130 liters. I had an 86 liter, so it's about half of that size, and it was enough, but I like having a little bit more room. So this van, we're going to be adding the 130 fridge back into it. We really like that size of a fridge for a family like ours. Then we're going to be trying a new fan in the roof. So we're going to be trying a Nomadic Arc Air Plus. We've always put in Max Air fans, the Max Air Deluxe, kind of the standard for the industry, and I'm kind of sick of them. They rattle a little bit. I never can get them really tight when we're getting underway and off on the road. So I really wanted a new option. I've been looking for a new option, and this one seems to be really hot on the forum. So we're going to go ahead and give it a shot in the van and test it out. Then the last thing is going to be our water system. I wanted a little bit more room in the van this time, and because I can't undermount my spare tire anymore, because we're going to be upgrading tires, I've been looking for an undermount water tank. So we have an undermount water tank that goes in that spare tire location in the back of the van. It's a 24-gallon freshwater tank, which should be just perfect. And we're going to be doing a undermount gray water tank on our passenger side, because that's where our sink is going to go. So we're going to be doing undermount tanks for the freshwater and gray water. And the only tank that's going to be inside the van is going to be our hot water tank, and that's just for fitment. With some of our build details now listed, we can start putting things into an order of operations of how we're going to execute them in the van. So when we're thinking about our van, I like to divide it up into two sections. It's going to be before the walls and after the walls. So once the walls go in, everything's kind of hidden behind there. So we want to do all of our pre-planning before we get to our wall installation. Let's take a look at all the items we're going to need to execute before we put our walls into our van. The very first thing we're going to be doing is going to be cutting holes in the van. That's going to be all of our windows, our fan, our exterior wiring. If we're going to do a rooftop AC, that's going to be the time. If we're going to be putting solar on the rooftop, so we're going to need to make sure we get our penetrations for wiring. Things like, the solar, our shore power penetration, as well as our exterior lights. We're probably going to be adding some area lights to the top of this van, so we're going to make all those penetrations so all that stuff is done outside the van and we can get everything sealed back up. Then we're going to put in our seat bases. The seat bases are going to install underneath the flooring, so we got to get that in there first. Then we can put our underfloor wiring in place. The underfloor wiring that we do here at AVC is going to be our main power wire for the CCP. We're going to be powering our S-bar furnace underneath our passenger seat, as well as running an auxiliary to that location. And then if you have any high amperage devices that need to cross over from one side of the van to the other, it's a good time to put those wires in place under the floor so we have a shorter run of wire. Then once all that wiring is in place, we can put in our flooring. I like to get my flooring in pretty early in the van. Once I'm done cutting metal, there's no reason to wait on putting the flooring down. So we can get that flooring down. It makes our work life much nicer. We have a nice flat surface to walk on. We're not walking on corrugated metal. And it gives you kind of this point of pride of, okay, we got this step out of the way. We can keep moving. So we'll get our flooring in place. Then we can worry about sound and insulation in the van, get all the sound dampening in there, get all of our insulation in the walls, everything like that. Then we can get into our main wiring. Putting all of our main wiring in is going to be all the big wire runs from our main power system to all the locations in the van. And those are usually going to go up and over the top of the van because we're going to different locations everywhere. We're going to group all those bundles, and we'll have a very specific video about that. After our main wiring is in place, then we can get into our framing kit. So whatever our infrastructure is going to be to support our wall kit, whether that's just our simple wall-to-ceiling supports that we put in just about every van you've seen us do, and then furring strips so that we get a little bit more fastener locations for the ceiling. Or you can go as far as putting in what we're calling the van skeleton, and that's a new kit we're going to be installing in this van with you. After all of your support materials are in the van, then we can wrap all of our columns, put our GoCode Overland pieces in there. We're going to use some GoCode Overland trim kits to wrap our D-pillars, things like that. It's a really nice product, really clean, and I think it's great for the DIY community. And then that's it. That's kind of our stopping point for our pre-wall kit section. So at that point, we're going to stop. We're going to review all of our documents, make sure everything is in place before we start putting the walls in and buttoning up those walls. Because then, if we're going to have to make any changes, we're going to have to pull all those walls down again. So with all that in place, now we can start the actual fun part of the van, which is going to be putting the cabinets and making this van come to life. So let's take a look at the map, and we're going to start planning out where our cabinets are going to live. now that we've listed all the details and some of the bigger components that are gonna go into this van build, I think it's time to start looking at a map and planning exactly where these things are gonna go. So currently I have a 2022 van build, and I have the forward, like a north-south queen size bed. I have 2 individual captain seats, and that means I have a center aisle to walk down the center of the van, which I really like. We're doing a split kitchen, and the build is really working for my family right now. We're building a new vehicle just for the shop, and there's a couple things I wanted to tweak to it. The biggest one being an east-west bed and adding that pop top upstairs. So let's put some of these items into our van template, kind of get an idea of the space and start planning out exactly where those components are gonna go. So for you today, we developed this new transit layout sheet. And these are gonna be available on our website for download. This is a perfect scale drawing of the Ford Transit with a 1-inch grid. So the grids are there so you can count everything out, lay everything out exactly the way you want to go. It's got a little spot here for notes, and we use these worksheets here in the shop for all sorts of stuff, planning our wiring, doing general layouts with customers, something that's just really basic, rudimentary, but gets the point across and is still to scale so we can get an idea of how the layout's going to feel. So we have those paper templates available, and I have one here filled out. But here in the shop, we also use CAD models. So we go into the computer, we can put all those different things into our model and get an idea of the 3-dimensional space and where everything's going to land. So I have some printouts from my CAD model of our van build, but I also have a paper version that I filled out here so we can kind of work together and get an idea of that space. So let's take a look at the map. So here on the table, I have a side-by-side drawing of the van. So this is exactly to scale as done in my CAD model, and then I just kind of roughed out some of these items by hand. So if you're doing this at home and you don't have access to the CAD model, you can still count out the squares and draw everything in so you get a realistic idea of where everything's going to go. This is going to help you when you start doing planning for your wiring, making sure all of your components are accounted for, everything like that. So here in the back, I have our east-west bed. This is going to be 60 inches off the back of our vehicle to the front. So that's the width of a queen-size bed. The only thing is we're going to contour the bed around these little spots here. We're going to be using the cubby pockets, just like you see here, so that we can get a little bit longer bed across the way. And underneath the bed is going to be our power kit and our water system on the other side. So inside this side here, it's actually going to end up being mostly storage, and our hot water heater is going to have to split the difference and live partly under our sink cabinet and partly kind of in this wheel well cabinet. So we're going to have to do some custom cabinetry to make that work in our build out. In the back of this is just going to be mainly storage. So we're going to have a little bit of extra long-term storage under the bed, and I can probably put some things in there like my emergency medical kits, some recovery gear, that kind of thing that I don't need to get to all the time, but it's nice to have in the van all the time. And then in front of our bed is going to be kind of our split kitchen layout here. So it's going to be our 130 fridge with, we might do an induction cooktop built into the countertop there. I haven't decided yet. Across the way is going to be our sink on this side. And hopefully we can squeak out a little bit of storage under the sink so we can get some extra additional items there. And then under that is also going to be our potty. So I like having a potty right here in the middle of the van so everybody can use the loo at night, or if we're stuck in traffic on the highway, something like that, the kids can use that, and I know it's a nice clean and safe bathroom. In front of those are going to be our individual seats, and you can see those modeled in our CAD design here. These are fairly rough on my paper design, but on the CAD model we did pulled a measuring tape and got all these things measured out. And then in this front area is kind of our living space, kind of our dinette. We'll end up putting an L-track table here, or not L-track, a lagoon mount table there on both of these pillars. So I can draw those in. Table, and then I like to do like a little swivel icon on the seats so that I know these are going to swivel around. And that way we know everybody's going to face in the middle here, and this is going to be kind of our living space. So then we have kind of 3 quadrants in the van. We have our living space, we have our kitchenette area, and then we have our sleeping / storage area in the back. So that's it for this layout. We can take a look at some of these dimensional drawings and get an idea of the space. You can see we have our east-west sleeper here with storage underneath, our power kit electrical system underneath the bed, and then I turned off all the cabinets on this side so we can kind of see through there. That's our fridge, our sink. We'll have a little sliver of storage here, but I think that'll be enough for some like cleaning up items, soaps, and stuff like that, so we can keep all of our dish and pantry there nice and concise. The one thing I didn't add into this CAD model is going to be our overhead cabinets. So let's go ahead and draw those into our paper model. So we're going to have overheads here. And those are going to stretch from the front of the van to the back of the van, just like in all of our builds. We're gonna go from here all the way forward, and we're gonna do 3 overhead cabinets. And then we have a little spot, obviously that's not to scale. Here. And this is gonna be our control panel, so CP. And that's where all of our wiring, our light switches, everything like that is gonna be. I like having my control panel central to the van, and that way I can reach those things from bed. I can have someone from the seats reach up and hit those, turn those off. It keeps all those controls nice and concise in the middle of the vehicle. With our van map complete, we're ready to start our initial phases of the van build. So we're gonna get away from the table and get into the van. We're gonna save that for the next episode. If you want any of the resources that we've built today, the scale map and the drawings, some of these sheets that you can use to fill out your van lists, we're gonna have all those available for download on avcrig.com, and we'll link those in the description below. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with this build. And if you want to do a favor to the shop here, go ahead and share this video with someone in the community, whether it's someone on the forum, someone on a Facebook group, or just one of your buddies that's looking into building their van. It really helps us get the name out there and get some of these resources into the hands of the people that are building vans. And that's who we're doing this for. We're doing it for you. So that being said, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we're going to see you on the next video.